Alright, today I'm taking apart a Borg Warner 4446. The reason I'm taking it apart is I have a 48 RE transmission in my 4th gen, and what I'm going to be doing is going back to a stock transfer case. Actually, I'm doing the Allison conversion, but the 48 RE, you have to cut 7/8 of an inch off your input shaft. On the Allison conversion, I'll need to put a tone ring literally right there. So I'm having to switch out the shaft back to a full-length stock shaft. Never done this before, so come along and learn with me. I've taken several NPs, new process transfer cases apart. This is my first Borg Warner, so bear with me. I'm going to be learning. Hopefully I can show you guys some things also, and let's get to it. So the first thing I realized when I popped off the actuator, which was just these four 10mm bolts, is that this wire goes into the case. It doesn't seem to unplug. Obviously it's sealed because there's oil inside. There's a nut here, and the plug, I don't know if I'm supposed to pop that off, but what we're going to do is we're going to split the case, see what's on the inside of this, and hopefully I can release something and let that slide out, or we can just keep this attached and move the whole assembly together, because all we need to do is get this off to get to the back of the case. Now I did find that it is a T40 for these, and I'm going to go ahead and remove those off camera. And one of the main reasons I'm doing this is because I couldn't find any information, or at least it doesn't seem like anybody's really torn into these yet and posted the information online. So let's get to it. Alright, I've gotten all the bolts out. They all seem to be the same length, so you don't need to worry about mixing them up. Sometimes one might be longer than another, and you need to know where that long one goes. Now this is RTV'd together, so I do expect it to give me a little bit of a fight. So breaking out the big pry bar here, and we're just going to give it a couple wiggles. Oh, that went nicely actually. Yeah, she separated. Alright, let's see. What I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to take it and shake and wiggle it up. Unfortunately, I can't do that with one hand, so I'm going to come back to you guys in just a second. Alright, with a lot more wiggling and prying than I expected, I was able to get everything separated. This piece does go with it, so that works out great. I haven't flipped it over yet to see what's in there, so let's do that together. It's going to fall. And interesting. Seems to be back here behind this. Maybe that's some kind of a magnet ring. I'm not sure what this is. I don't need to go that way, so we're going to leave that be. Everything in here needs to be cleaned up when it goes back together. There's a lot of silicone that will have to be scraped off, and we'll put new silicone when we go in. I'm going to go ahead and feel the bearings while I'm in here. Make sure nothing feels funny, rolling smooth. I see 18.5. This is a 2018 truck. I don't know if it's a half year, but this is the inside. Now, it did look like this was being held in, or is, oh, it's just very heavy. It's all right. We'll lift this out. Now, in most transfer cases, you can lift out as an assembly. I'm not sure if this one does that, because on the inside, this obviously goes down, but it can't go down unless it slides off, which it does. So it does look like we'll be able to do that. We want to make sure that we don't affect any of these shift mechanisms, and then they go back where we are. I know in some trucks the actuator needs to be where it was when it was unplugged. So let's keep digging in, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lift off the chain, the output, and I'm going to make sure that these don't get damaged in the process. I do believe this is just going to lift right out of there. So let's do it. I've actually got you guys on a little engine stand so that you can see what's going on. Get this out of the way, and we are going to pick that up and set these gears off. Alright, so this should slide up. Now, some of you probably won't be doing what I'm doing, but if you need to get in here because your chain has slack or just needs to be real bearings, I know these chains are fairly often replaced due to like boosted launches and fun stuff like that. So this could help you navigate that, especially if you're a new DIY guy that wants to get in here and do this stuff themselves. Now, what I've got here, this red hose, this is the pump suction, and it just slides out like that. There's a lot of fluid in here. Alright, so that assembly is out. Now that pump does get clocked back into the case here. So when we go to reassemble, we'll pay attention to that. Now, here's your chain. That is going to be reused. This sprocket, I'm going to set back on here. Now, the way this came apart, I want to make sure it goes back in like it came out. There's a small pin that fits into the case here. And then this spring needs to make sure that that goes back in there. We're going to set that stuff down. I'm actually going to have to lift this shift fork out, and it slides around a collar inside. That collar, what it does is when you apply four-wheel drive, it lifts up to engage your planetary, or it drops down to disengage it, or vice versa. I'm not exactly sure. Now here's the piece that I am changing today, and this is a comparison of how much I actually cut off of it. You can see that it's about 7/8 of an inch. That's what the I did a fire pump conversion. That's what their instructions said to do. Yeah, so this should just flip back over. Now, something I noticed is that there's some washers in here. I'm going to pick those up exactly like they are because they're actually bearing washers. And I'm going to set them back in there. And that's the only thing. It's slippery, don't want to drop it. Boom, we're engaged. So it needs to go down a little more, but I do believe it is. The case is sitting too low, and I had a small block of wood here. As you can see, maybe not this in the way. On the bottom here, when I lift this up, yep, that shaft came out somewhere, and it's still held up. I'll have to get some more wood or something to curb this up. And what we're going to do is reassemble. So let me take a pause here for a second, guys, and get this cribbed up a little better, and then I'll start you back in only a second. All right, so this is cribbed up now. You can see that shaft is off the table, so that way it is seated all the way down into the case. I'm going to put this, not sure what you would call this, shift collar maybe, put this gear back into the transfer case. All right, and so this is the shift fork. It actually slips onto this collar, like so. And so when you apply four-wheel drive, what happens is this lifts up and drops down and engages these teeth into another gear inside on that planetary. And that's what I believe gives you four-wheel drive. And then the other shift collar is what gives you low range. But I could have that backwards. This could give you low range, and that could give you four-wheel drive. But either way, it's not real important to know as long as you get it put back together properly. Now, one thing that I'm noticing right now, there are two skip teeth in here. I'm going to look very closely. Yes, so there are two skip teeth, and I'm not sure how important it is, but I see that there are two holes drilled into the shaft. I'll get you guys and show you that a little bit up close, because that could be important. So there's a hole here, and then you have a skip tooth here. So what I'm going to do, and I don't know if this is right or not, I'm going to line up that skip tooth with the hole. which I can't do if I'm trying to look through the camera, which is right there. So when I lower this thing in there, that hole is going to feed the fluid into that skip tooth. Now I don't know how important that is, but if fluid's coming out of here, pumping around, it probably needs to make its way out each end. So that's the piece that moves, and these teeth grab on. So you're definitely going to want fluid coming out of here, lubricating these splines for when it shifts. It can slide back and forth. Now, this is my first YouTube video, so bear with me on the camera angles and stuff like that. But I'm going to get you back on the tripod for the reassembly. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and lower this back in. I'm going to line up those skip tooth where I know it will be. Going to put my shift fork back on that collar. I'm going to line it up. There is a hole in the case, and this guy slips right through, down into that hole, just like that. This mechanism sits down in here. So that sits down too far. I have to lift that up a little bit. And it's a little bit tricky, but you just gotta wiggle and line it up. There you go. So now as you shift your transmission, now this spring is sitting on top of that shift fork if you can't see it, but as that transmission actuator turns, it's going to lift and engage the four-wheel drive, and then it drops back down. So I think the first half of a rotation is engaging four-wheel drive, which there's another actuator or another shift fork that sits on top. So I believe that is going to first shift, that first half is going to shift you into four-wheel drive, which makes sense. And then the second bit, which actually lifts this tooth into the planetary, and the planetary is just a gear reduction, so that makes me believe it's four low, that is going to put it into four low. Theoretically. If I'm correct, comment below. If I'm wrong, definitely comment below, because I might be back in here to fix that. Actually, there's nothing to fix because I'm putting it back together like I found it. This shift fork goes on here. Now I need to line up that skip with that hole. I'm going to set the shift fork to the side for right now because it's plastic and I don't want to break it, because this thing weighs probably 35 pounds or so. Alright, now remember, the pump also has to be clocked so that your pickup is at the bottom, and that your shift fork fits into the opening on the side here. So your shift fork goes in there, pump comes out the bottom, which it makes it really easy because it's only got one place to line up. My skip tooth goes right. Say it's easy, but by yourself, this is a challenge. And my skip tooth goes right there. We're back together. Alright, next we have our actuator. And it's not going to work. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to lift this up. Lift this up. Get it back on. Set it over. Oh boy. It's not being very easy for one person. That's the cards I'm dealt. I've got some friends that I could get to come help. However, they're not available today, and I need this done. I'm going to do is I'm going to lift it up into four-wheel low, get my key back on here, and I can, come on, there we go, that right on there, needs to sit back down in there, just just like that. Go. So that is just two-wheel drive straight through. As I rotate this guy, I don't think that I'm going to be able to do it. No, can't do it with my hands. Anyways, I want to rotate this back around until it is in two-wheel drive, because that is what I took it apart from. There is your two-wheel drive. I'm not sure if this spring is in the right location. I think the spring went up here. Let me pause and look back at my pictures and make sure that that spring is in the right spot. Because now that I'm looking at it, I think I have misplaced that spring, and I believe that spring actually sits on top of this guy right here, which it does. Ooh, I'm glad I picked up that one. Yes, that spring sits there. You guys might want to skip ahead until I get this together, just to save yourselves some watching time. And I don't know how to edit video, so I might have to take a couple courses on that. But this is my first YouTube video. I don't plan to do too many. However, I haven't seen a lot of information on the Allison conversion, so I may take some videos after I get this together and I'm driving it, because it's not a lot of like drive shifting, how it acts behind the wheel. There's a lot of how well it fits under the truck, and I know Steve Dolan has done a great job at explaining how it works and why it works the way it works. And he did a quick little test drive video, which was great. I definitely think the world of that guy. Seems really smart. And I dealt with him a little bit on a 3rd gen with a VGT, the Banshee controller, but ended up going a different route. There it is. So now at this point, I need to get my chain on. And that goes like this. Boy. Yep, I'm gonna have to lift this up again. So, trial and error, guys. It takes a bit of work and finessing to get it there. But if you just keep working at it, pieces will just start falling in place. And honestly, the longer you take to do it, the more you're gonna learn, the more you're gonna see how it actually functions, and the better you'll be able to troubleshoot it the next time it fails. Or maybe you're in here just for preventative. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Not bad. Not bad at all. Boom. And that is back together 100% minus the case. Cool, guys. If you want to stick around and watch me put the case back together, you can. If not, thanks for watching. Subscribe and like all the YouTubers say. I'm not a YouTuber, however, I think that's cool that they do that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put some RTV. Actually, I'm going to strip this RTV off. I'm going to put down some new RTV, seal it up, put it together, put the actuator on, and I'm going to catch you guys after I clean up this case and put some RTV on there. So the way that I'm doing this is I've just got one of these scrapers with a razor knife on it. You can pick them up at Advanced Auto, O'Reilly's, AutoZone, maybe even Lowe's. But I highly recommend one of these because if you're sitting there with just a regular razor, one, you're going to get fatigued. It's frustrating. Feels like it takes a lot longer than it needs to. And yeah, this really just makes it effortless. Just come in here, work it a little bit. Now, I was doing this off camera, and I had this case sitting here. It wasn't as stable as it is now, and I almost dropped it on the ground. That would have been a disaster. Thankfully, quick reflexes, I guess. I saw it starting to fall and caught it. Don't want that to happen. Aluminum's tough, but falling straight down onto some concrete probably would have caused some problems. Now you want to be careful not to get any of the debris into your case, because that's just going to circulate in the transfer case and it could wear things out over time. I've done pretty good. I don't see anything in there, but if you do get something in there, try to get it out the best you can. There is a small screen on the pickup, but it's just there for foreign, particles and stuff. It's not really there to stop everything. So I think I've got it pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some RTV, black RTV silicone gasket maker, and I'm just going to take this and go all the way around. And I think after that, I'll be back. I'm going to try to give you guys a little perspective of every step. Putting the RTV down, you don't want to go too heavy because the excess is going to push off and squeeze out. And you don't want that just lingering, that squeeze strip lingering on the inside, because if that was to break off at any time, it's going to be circulating around inside. So you want a nice thin, consistent though, stream of silicone. This is two machine surfaces going together, so really you're only trying to seal the void of the machining marks. It's not like you're filling cast to cast or anything like that. I'm gonna go back and just double check, make sure that there's no little gaps. Seems to be a couple little small gaps where I let go and squeezed again. Or maybe it's just a little thin for my liking, like right there. I'm gonna go around, look at everything. I think we're good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start to lower this other half of the case back on. I do need to be careful because the actuator is hanging. Get that up here. And this is clean. I cleaned both halves. Now I'm only putting RTV on one half because when you put the two together, it's gonna go. So we want to be careful because as we come up through here, we've got I believe